So Near You Now is my current venture, been at this 2 years. What we do is work with publishers to allow them to aggregate their own professional media, third-party hyperlocal bloggers and other semi-professional producers, social media, data-driven stuff, open data, sensors, all that kind of thing, and produce really rich, deep, hyperlocal feeds for mobile phones and other devices. And in future, we'll be doing that for Google Glass and Apple Watches and all those kind of things. So hyperlocal news through major publishers, aggregated from many sources. And probably straight away, you can start to see where we might play with a TSB call, as it was around hyperlocal media, called Destination Local. So we've been fortunate enough to benefit from 2 separate competitions under the same umbrella of Destination Local. The first was a feasibility study in 2012. We were a single company entrant to that. We came in as a brand new startup effectively, basically looking out to research and prove out our idea. Would that concept I just described to you have any legs at all? Was there a real problem there? Could we apply technology to solve it? And we received a little bit of money and matched that with some of our own. And we worked with the BBC, we established a partnership with Sussex University for some semantic analysis and natural language work that we do. And at the end of that, we proved, yes, there is a real problem here. Users, like and value local media, but struggle to find it online and on mobile. And yes, we can apply some advanced technology around geographic modeling and semantic analysis to help news organizations surface more relevant content. That was great, that was successful, got us so far down the line. But what we didn't really have was business validation, and we recognized we were going to have to put together quite a complex array of partners to really prove the business value of what we'd built. So when this second call, collaborative R&D call, came up in November last year, was when this initial bid was called for. We decided we would lead a bid. We had quite a strong vision for what we wanted to do and how it fit with that particular competition call. And we went out and worked with a large regional publisher, a couple of small hyperlocals. We brought the university in as a formal research partner, and us as an SME leading the bid, actually the smallest of the 5 companies in some ways. And we've been through an 8-month process from there. So there was a bid round. We were successful there around Christmas time last year. We then went and spent one of the odder weeks of my life holed up in a hotel with many of these people here on the banks of the River Trent in Derbyshire as it flooded about every 4 hours and we all had to move cars from the car park. Really quite an intensive workshop, sandpit type session. The other people, the other 10 competitors, stroke winners of the first round were in the room with us. It ended up being really useful. I think everyone that won the bid would say that. All the people that lost the final bid probably wouldn't say that, but never mind. Final bid's in March. We were told in late April, early May, I think, that we'd been successful. And even from there was still 3 more months of due diligence and form filling and ratification before we could finally start a few weeks ago. So the first thing to stress there, obviously, this isn't necessarily a quick process. This is one of the larger bids, I think, one of the larger projects. So no surprise, it does take a bit of time. What I would say is for companies like ours trying to build innovative projects, this kind of funding is absolutely critical. We have brought in some external funding as well, but the market for sensible angel funding in the UK isn't what it should be. We're frequently asked for, I'd love to fund you when you've got revenues, when you've got customers, when you've got traction. Well, guess what? We probably won't need your money when that happens. So this really does help fill some of those gaps and really gets us some of the ways. I'd encourage anyone who sees a fit for themselves to explore it and follow through. And in that spirit, I will give you the top 10 tips if you're thinking of applying, just to rattle them off and get you thinking in the right way. Matt said it earlier, but ensure fit with the scope. So some of these, or most of these competitions that I've seen have a theme or a call or a competitive angle to them. Some of them are open, and you can just come along with it with any good idea. But really, and make sure you fit with the scope. Often you will have a preconceived idea, some sort of focus on what you're trying to do. If it fits with the competition, fantastic, and you'll get a sense pretty quickly of whether you're a fit or whether you're not. And again, as Matt said, if you try and crowbar it in, you'll waste a ton of time and probably fail. In our case, it was really important for us to act as a strong consortium lead, and I think consortiums where you're trying to run it as a democracy, I think we'd have struggled, to be honest with you, to get a bid together. So we had the vision, we went out and recruited the partners, made sure they believed in their bit and the overall project, but we really had to drive it. And the amount of work we've put in as a consortium lead is probably 10x what any of the other partners has done. Now, for us, it was worthwhile. It really was critical to us that we won it and we led it. But there's a lot of work in there, and a strong lead with a strong vision is really important if you're running one of these consortium projects. When you're applying at the start, there's 2 or 3 different boxes where you get to say what you're doing and in general, then state your fit with the scope. Really, really important that you clearly explain what you're up to there and don't get too bogged down in the detail that you'll get to later on. As with 3 or 4 of these points, put yourself in the shoes of some poor guy who sat in his bedroom trying to mark 10 of these in a day. And they're long and there's lots of jargon and they all start to read the same after a while. So it's really, really important that you can crisply explain what it is you're doing, why you fit, who will benefit. And again, particularly as Matt stressed, what's going to happen differently because of TSB funding? Why does it matter to you? And you need to do that really succinctly. Along the same theme, and I think if you sat an assessor down, they'd probably say this one more than anything: please answer the questions. The number of people who believe they already know how to describe their business and just take a big chunk of text off their website or their business plan and drop it in, and that's going to fail. You have to answer the questions. There's detailed guidance. The guidance gives you plenty of hints and suggestions and sort of pointers where you're going to score points and where you're not. And by answering those questions directly, and to the point of, what is the business opportunity for this product or service, start the answer with the phrase, the business opportunity is. That will get you down the right lines. And apparently, 50-60% of the people miss either the scope point or they fail to answer the questions. And if you do those 2 things, you'll already be in the top half of applicants. Don't waffle. Do use subheadings and sections. Again, I've sat with people trying to guide them through, and they put two pages, very dense text with no sections, no breaks, no nothing, and it really is quite hard to digest that amount of information as an assessor. And where you can break it out, it helps you make your points, help you stress what you're doing. It helps the markers give you the marks they're trying to give you as you walk through. So lots of structure within your application. This one almost goes back to sort of GCSE times, if you like. Yeah. As if I did them and not O-levels. Don't miss any opportunity to collect points. Again, think of the assessor a little bit like an examiner, and think of them as being on your side. They want to give you the points that are available. So there's questions in one of the competitions around, stress the social, environmental, and commercial benefits, something on those lines. Yep. Make sure you stress one of each. There's probably a mark behind each of them or 2 marks behind each of them. Even if, as a software product, there might be not that many environmental benefits to what you do, figure out where there might be one and stress that one. You'll probably pick up a mark. So really work through that in a very structured way. Make sure you answer all the questions and give the assessor the opportunity to give you the points that you're due. Really, really important to state clearly what the TSB funding will enable that would not otherwise happen. If this reads just like the kind of thing you're going to do anyway, then why should the public purse fund it? And that can be technical and R&D work that wouldn't otherwise happen. In the collaborative bid that we put together, we found it quite easy to pull out the partnerships and relationships we could create between big companies and small companies and academia and SME technology companies that are actually quite tough to put in place. And without some funding to grease those wheels, those companies probably wouldn't come together in a room and work. So in those collaborative bids, those partnership and relationships angles can really work in your favour as well, and genuinely are benefits that the funding brings. You're not owed anything. I've sat in a couple of briefing competitions where people on the front row have explained the particular outline of a competition. There's been people in the room who are obviously there thinking, this is my tax money, give it back to me. I don't have to do much. And I'm not here to debate the pros and cons of that. If you go into the bid process with that attitude, you'll write a really bad bid and you'll fail. So treat it like any other customer, effectively. You're there to try and win that business. You're there to try and win that money. Figure out what the TSB or Innovate UK want to hear and make sure you position your business and your proposal in the right way. It's a very competitive process. It just takes a lot longer than you're going to think as well. So I mentioned the 10x time, and you saw that 8-month period. Now there were peaks and troughs in there, but when you're writing the bid up against the deadline, you're going to need a month for it to draft, for it to bed in, for you to change it and then to tweak it, particularly if you've got partners approving it. other people trying to view it and get to it as well. Don't try and write it the week before. I had a small company I agreed to try and help out with a bid recently, and they called me up at 11 o'clock the night before it was due with a bid that needed a significant rewrite. So I said, "You're really good. Just change those two things and you'll be fine." And they didn't win, of course. They'd left it much too late. And then also be ready for that post-notification due diligence. It caught me a bit by surprise just how deep that went this time round. It was 3 months. They are looking into your full ability to finance the whole project, both from the matched funding you'll need to invest across the whole piece, but also a cash flow perspective. So as you're funded effectively 3 months in arrears, you really need 4 months of working capital across the project, and you'll need to demonstrate that you have the wherewithal to support that. So they look into that, and they look into the structure of the partnership. So there's actually quite a lot of work, even after we've been told we've been successful, before we could begin, and another round of form filling and admin as well. So be ready for that, and make sure you've got all the ducks in a row for that phase. It'd be horrible to be successful and then actually fail because you weren't able to justify what you'd said. Other than that, good luck. I'd recommend anyone applies. It's really, really useful.